Barack Obama's decision to send small arms and ammunition to Syrian rebels has been criticised by Republicans and Democrats alike for not going far enough. Now there's talk the US president is considering a limited no-fly zone over Syria. North America correspondent Ben Knight.
It takes the White House Chief of Staff, Dennis McDonough, just 3 seconds to set out the policy on Syria.
We've rushed a war in this region in the past. We're not going to do it here.
And polls have consistently shown that the overwhelming majority of Americans feel exactly the same way. There is extreme reluctance to entangle the United States in another disastrous Middle Eastern war, especially one that involves Iran and Russia on the other side. On Sunday, Russia's President Vladimir Putin had this to say about the American decision to send weapons to the Syrian rebels. You'll not deny that one does not really need to support the people who not only kill their enemies, but open up their bodies, eat their intestines in front of the public and cameras. Are these the people you want to support? Today, Barack Obama will try to convince Vladimir Putin to pull back on his support for the Assad regime. But back in Washington, the American president's under pressure himself from Republicans to ramp up his support for the rebels.
Well, small arms don't stop tanks, which the Syrians are using.
AK-47 will not neutralize the advantage of Assad.
They need a lot more than military assistance. We need to establish the no-fly zone.
Even some senior Democrats, like Senator Bob Menendez, are saying the president could do more.
You can't just simply send them, a pea shooter against a blunderbuss. We need to tip the scales, not simply to nudge them.
There's time pressure on Barack Obama as well. After 2 years of bloody stalemate, the Assad regime appears to be gaining the upper hand. The White House is now reported to be considering a limited no-fly zone over Syria that could involve bombing Syrian airfields, which would stop warplanes from taking off and stop weapons from being flown in. But it's not what's happening in the air that's the problem in Syria. It's what's happening on the ground, specifically the arrival of Iranian-backed Hezbollah fighters from across the border in Lebanon. Now, Britain's independent newspaper reports that Iran has decided to commit 4,000 of its own Revolutionary Guards to fight on behalf of the Assad regime. All of this makes the prospect of getting the US involved even less appealing for Barack Obama and the American people, many of whom may well agree with the view of the former vice presidential candidate, Governor Sarah Palin.
I say, until we have someone who knows what they're doing, I say, let Allah sort it out.
This is Ben Knight in Washington for AM.
And there are reports this morning that a major blast has occurred at a military airport in the Syrian capital, Damascus. Syrian state television says the blast was caused by a terrorist attempt.
We have to start from the vantage point that there is no military solution. So the first thing is stop sending more weapons. Engage seriously in diplomatic talks. The U.S. must stop its nonsense of saying we'll talk to the Russians, but we won't allow Iran to be present. Because what that says then is Iran doesn't have any skin in the game. There's no reason for them to abide by any agreement reached because they've been excluded from the process. This is something that we learned from former Senator George Mitchell when he was heading up the Good Friday Accord negotiations in Ireland, where he said very clearly, if you're serious about your diplomacy, that's the key. If you're serious, everybody has to be at the table, because if they're not, it's not going to work. It doesn't matter whether you like them or not, but if you exclude someone because you think they're terrorists, you're giving them every reason to ignore whatever agreement finally emerges. There then needs to be a UN mandate that the Russians hopefully will be able to persuade the Syrian government, and the U.S. will be able to persuade the rebels to accept a weapons of mass destruction / chemical weapons inspection team with a serious mandate to investigate all allegations on all sides. So far, the two sides are basically saying, we'll only accept a mandate that's narrow enough to only go after the other guys. And that means that there won't ever be a serious inspection, and there should be. The final thing I would say is that we have to keep in mind longer-term issues. It's not enough to just say we're going to stop it right this second, knowing it could explode again. That means we should be pushing again for the creation of a weapons of mass destruction-free zone throughout the Middle East. This is something, of course, Scott, you'll remember that this was the language that was used in the resolution that ended the Gulf War back in 1991. The U.S. drafted that resolution. It's about time they did something to enforce it.
That was Phyllis Bennis, director of the New Internationalism Project at the Institute for Policy Studies and author of many books, including Challenging Empire, How People, Governments in the UN Defy U.S. Power.
Must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind.